In a major development from the Middle East, Hamas, the militant group governing the Gaza Strip, has agreed to release Israeli hostages, but with strict conditions attached. This surprising turn of events comes amidst ongoing tensions and a humanitarian crisis in the region, with the hostage situation reaching a new level of urgency. International mediators, including Qatar and Egypt, have played a critical role in facilitating this agreement. However, the news comes with caveats. Hamas is demanding significant political and military concessions from Israel in exchange for the release of hostages. This new phase in the Israel-Gaza conflict brings both hope and uncertainty, as the two sides weigh the implications of such an agreement. Geopolitical context. The Israel-Gaza conflict is rooted in decades of tension, marked by territorial disputes, military engagements, and deeply entrenched historical grievances. Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, is a Palestinian Islamist organization that has been in conflict with Israel for over 2 decades. The primary focus of this long-standing feud centers around the status of Palestinian territories, with Gaza being a focal point of armed struggle. For years, the international community has struggled to mediate peace, but the conflict has only deepened with each passing year. The most recent escalation began in the wake of several provocative actions, including military strikes, attacks on civilians, and retaliatory airstrikes. The hostage situation, which has gained widespread attention, escalated in the midst of these tensions. It was initially believed that no agreement would be reached on the hostages, but the recent breakthrough offers a glimmer of hope. The agreement? What we know so far. Hamas' agreement to release Israeli hostages represents a significant development, but it is not without conditions. Sources close to the negotiations suggest that Hamas has outlined specific demands tied to the release. These conditions primarily involve military and territorial concessions from Israel. Hamas has reportedly asked for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from certain key areas within Gaza and the lifting of blockades that have been imposed on the region for several years. The blockade, which restricts the movement of people and goods in and out of Gaza, has been a source of immense suffering for Palestinians, and Hamas' demand for its easing is viewed as a bargaining chip in this negotiation. While the specifics of the conditions remain unclear, the agreement is said to involve a phased release of hostages, with the first group being freed in the coming days.
However,
the success of this release hinges on both sides meeting their obligations. Hamas has warned that failure to fulfill the terms could result in the cessation of the release process, leading to further tensions and potential escalation. The humanitarian impact? The hostage situation has sparked global outcry and concern over the humanitarian impact of the ongoing conflict. The lives of the hostages, who are held in captivity by Hamas, have been a focal point of international advocacy. Over the years, international organizations, including the United Nations, have called for the safe release of hostages and an end to the violence that has ravaged Gaza and Israel alike. As the release of hostages becomes a reality, it is crucial to consider the wider implications for the people of Gaza and Israel. Hostage situations are a terrible burden for families and communities, with the mental and emotional toll lasting long after the captives are freed. The global community has rallied behind the cause of securing the release of hostages, but it is clear that this is not the only issue at hand. The cessation of hostilities, the lifting of blockades, and the broader peace process must be considered to ensure that the release of hostages is not simply a short-term victory, but part of a long-lasting solution to the crisis. Without addressing the root causes of the conflict, including the humanitarian needs of Palestinians and the security concerns of Israelis, peace remains elusive. Israel's response. Security concerns. Israel's response to Hamas conditions will be crucial in determining the outcome of this agreement. The Israeli government has long maintained that its primary concern in Gaza is security. Over the years, Hamas has been responsible for numerous attacks on Israeli civilians and military personnel, and Israel's military actions in Gaza have often been framed as self-defense. The Israeli government has expressed willingness to engage in peace talks, but it remains adamant that its security needs must be prioritized. The release of hostages is seen as a positive development, but many Israeli officials are wary of making concessions under pressure. The demand for a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and the easing of the blockade are viewed by some as a dangerous compromise that could jeopardize Israel's security in the region. At the same time, the international community, including the United States, has called on Israel to approach the negotiations with an open mind. The hope is that, by securing the release of hostages and making some concessions, Israel can create a path toward a more peaceful future in the region. However, the Israeli public remains divided on this issue, with some supporting the idea of peace talks, while others feel that Hamas' demands are simply too great. Hamas strategy: negotiation or leverage? For Hamas, the release of hostages is a strategic move, but it is also one that serves as a bargaining chip in negotiations with Israel. By agreeing to release hostages, Hamas is positioning itself as a political player in the Middle East, capable of striking deals and influencing international diplomacy. The demands it has put forth, particularly around the blockade and military withdrawal, are a reflection of the group's desire to gain recognition and political leverage.